Welcome to Florida Focus, a college football podcast. We have an FSU Seminole fan, that's me, Brandon, and a Florida Gator fan, my co-host Chris, putting aside our differences to bring you the fantastic world of college football throughout the Sunshine State. Today we'll recap the losses for the Gators, the Seminoles, and the other teams around the state. We will preview next week's games coming up into the cold November. You will hear both of us mispronounce the tight end for Missouri's last name, and you might hear a Chevy Chase quote. So given today's show, Chris, how are you feeling about the episode, my friend?
We talked about this before we started. This was just an awful week. Mm-hmm. So I'm glad to just talk and get it over with. get past this week.
It was indeed rough, and UCF continues to win and be the sole bright spot in the Sunshine State, no pun intended, yeah. But there's very little else to cheer about these days.
Yeah, I know. So last week we had 0 Florida teams win, and now we got moved up to 2 Florida teams win. So
no, we had one. FIU won. Just the one.
Oh yeah, last week. So 1 to 2.
Right.
So next week 3 Florida teams are going to win.
And one of the teams had to win this week because 2 Florida teams squared off.
Yeah.
Oh man, what a weird way to enter the last month of the season. It really is odd. Know. So, anyway, we'll let you start off, Chris. I'll let you recap the Gator game at home against Missouri. Let me know how you feel about the homecoming game that went awry.
Oh my goodness, I don't know if this could have gone any worse, and I still am scratching my head trying to figure out what happened to the Gators. They lose to Missouri 38-17, and it just looked like we were sleepwalking through the whole game. I really don't know. I didn't see this coming, honestly. Like I knew that the Georgia loss was a little bit deflating and disappointing for sure, but this team seemed to be good at bouncing back from adversity, whether it was a loss or whether it was something in the game, and they did not do that at all. They did not respond at all, and it's weird because last year, same thing, that devastating loss to Georgia, and then we just come out flat on the road against Missouri, didn't show up and get blown out. Same thing happens this year, and I don't know. I did not see this coming. I didn't think we were going to repeat last year. I didn't think we were going to do the same thing and just not show up against Missouri. And we're talking offense, defense, special teams, coaching, all of that was just I'm at a loss for words, honestly. I'm still, I had a couple of days to think about it. I'm still at a loss for words.
Yeah.
I'll start with the offense, and I know how you like to go the positives and improvements. I'm just going to get all the improvements out of the way. We'll talk about the negative, and then we'll look at some bright spots because that's just the only way I can do it because just so few bright spots. Offensively, this whole game really, offensively and defensively, but offensively specifically, our strengths did not show up. And when your strengths don't show up at all, your weaknesses really show. And we didn't. One of the things that we had going for us all year was the running game. I know that Malik Davis went down early, but P. Ryan and Scarlett really stepped up, and the offensive line always had a nice push. No matter what we were doing in the passing game, our push in the run game was always there. It was not there at all today. Was not there one bit. P. Ryan 42 yards, Scarlett 33. It was just kind of blah. And Franks came out throwing early, trying to hit the deep ball again, and all game just missed. Could not make anything. Just a little off the whole game with his receivers. He was trying to hit Van Jefferson a lot. Could not hit him. I don't know if it's carrying over from the Georgia game, but it seems like when Franks misses early, he's in for a long game.
Okay.
And it showed. And I don't know why. I think we should have run the ball more, like at least try to run, even though we weren't getting a push. I think, that's our best chance to win was to hit the run more. And I think getting in the ball into Kadarius Toney's hands more. Because he had 23 yards rushing and he had 72 yards receiving. And that's pretty good, but he needs that more. And especially if the offense is sputtering, he needs to touch the ball more, whether it's wildcat, jet sweep, or now we're seeing him actually going down the field and being able to catch. I just don't know what we were doing, and I think we were kind of just waiting for us to wake up, and we never did. They had a bad punt early, and we got a field goal, and we went up 3-0, and you thought, okay, we'll be all right. Now that we have a lead, we can play a little more relaxed. No, we didn't. And we saw later in the game, Kyle Trask, Franks got benched, and Kyle Trask came in, provided a spark for us, but it was a little bit too late at that point of the game. So now we're going to see this week is a quarterback controversy. Who should start for Florida?
Yeah.
And, if you look at the numbers, Frank's 84 yards passing, 9 for 22. And Kyle Trask looked pretty good, but I'm going to pump the brakes a little bit. I'm not really high on Franks, but there's a reason Franks got the starting job in the beginning of the year and Trask didn't. There's got to be some reason why. And it's easy for Trask to look as good as he did when you're down by a lot and there's no pressure. It's real easy. But I will say he does look more confident, just in general. He looks more confident in the pocket than Franks. I think Franks has a little more upside in the passing game. But mentally, I just don't know if Franks has what it takes. You see, this is his almost the end of his second year as the guy, and he still doesn't. He seems like if he gets behind in the game or he doesn't start off good, he can't really rally. He can't shake it off and rally and get back into the quarterback that he can be. Okay. So I'm starting to worry, just like big picture. Is he the guy we want? I don't know if Trask is the answer. He might be the immediate answer, but I don't know if he's the answer. I don't think he throws the ball as well, but like I said, he's a little more confident in his decision making. So I think Franks should start, and Mullins made it very clear that Franks is the guy. But I think his leash should be short, though. I really do. I don't wait till we're down 19 points to put Trask in. If you by the end of the first quarter you're seeing Franks is looking like he did last week, put Trask in early. I don't know. I'm not really sure what to do with that. But that's just my take. I don't know if that's the right answer. Okay. So that was the offense kind of sputtered. Special teams, I don't know, didn't really do too much, but they didn't do anything positive. And we needed to just outshine them in that area. So at least had one phase, but we didn't even have that. Even to the point where Townsend, our punter, got a unsportsmanlike conduct and almost got a targeting.
Right.
And if you reviewed it, like, he definitely led with his helmet, but it was the softest hit ever. I think the refs felt bad for him. Like, ew, that was kind of pretty soft, even for a punter. So, but yeah, special teams didn't really do much. And then our defense. This was the biggest disappointment of the whole game. We saw with Georgia, they exploited our young corners, and I thought the reason was McWilliams, our freshman there. But really, it wasn't him. It's all the freshmen. Dean got the nod over him this game, and they exploited Dean, and they picked on him. And I don't know if it didn't seem like it was. I don't know what we need to do, but they were just wide open. I don't know if we need to switch to more of a zone, because I know we like to blitz and leave our corners on islands and have them man to man. That's not working. Our secondary is too young, too inexperienced. some of the guys have shown flashes of potential, but overall, that is just becoming a liability. So I don't know what we need to do. I know in basketball, if you have a matchup that does not favor you, the one way to disguise that is switch to zone. You can kind of hide it a little bit. I don't know if that translates over to football as much, but so yeah, that was rough. But again, like I said, when our strengths don't show, the weaknesses really start to show. And one of our strengths all year was our pass rush. They're non-existent. We had one sack this game, and that was from a nickel corner. You didn't hear any of the D lineman's name all game. And in the last 3 games, we have forced 1 turnover, and that was at the end of the Vanderbilt game. It didn't really matter.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was a strength earlier in the season, and now it's not. So it's just kind of like, what is going on with our team? I don't know if it's an isolated incident. We're just responded bad to Georgia, or if this is who we are. And it stinks because just when I think I know this team, turns out I don't. And so I'm very confused. I know a lot of Gator fans are scratching their heads going, what is going on here? Is this something we should panic about, or is this a fluke? So yeah, and I don't know. I mean, Mullen came out and said, it was coaching. It's on us. We didn't prepare. We didn't do this and that. And I think I tend to agree, because I didn't see like it was a lot of effort, like a lack of effort. It just seemed like they weren't ready. So I put the blame on the coaches more than anything. So yeah, that was that. As far as the positives go, I did like how we responded at the end of the first half, getting that touchdown there. I did like we didn't give up any turnovers. So that was nice. I think we were kind of waiting for them to make a mistake, and they didn't make a mistake. They didn't really help us out. But I like Trask. I like his energy. I like it. It brought the crowd back into it. Like I said, when they scored, it was too late. Where there was still time to score, but our defense wasn't stopping them. So I did like that. And that is about it. It was just an ugly game, a really, really ugly game. And I know I'm hoping that it was just a bad matchup, their style of play versus our inexperienced corners. I'm hoping that's it. I hope it's not a bigger picture issue where this kind of stuff is the norm for us, because I've seen this with us last year. We kind of just faded away. Now, we've done that a lot recently. We start off good in the early season and then just fade away as the season goes along. This year, we started off slow, maybe peaked in the middle, and now we're coming back down. Yeah, I don't know. It's a weird one. It really is.
Yeah, from the outside looking in, I think that there's been some identity questions. Who's going to win the game this time? Offense, defense, special teams. But this one here, you saw some interesting things that you didn't see all year. I mean, this was really, in my opinion, the first really, really bad game that he had. He has some struggles against Georgia, but all of his errant plays really came in important parts. So he overthrew a touchdown pass in the first quarter. Yep. He had bad throws twice on 3rd down. He wasn't reading the defense very well. And, yeah, you mentioned the special teams. The kicker remains perfect, according to us. Field goal dinks off the upright.
Yeah, I know, right?
So good for that. But the failed 3rd and 2 after Missouri's touchdown early in the game, that kind of hurts. You let their offense do a lot. And Missouri, let's be honest, was hungry for an SEC win. And they played better, and they nearly knocked off Kentucky. So you nearly had it in there. And you could weigh in more on the history of Missouri versus Florida, but it's traditionally been a game you struggled in.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wide receivers, obviously the strength of their team is their passing game. Drew Lock just kind of threw all over the place. And
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm pronouncing this guy's name right. Missouri's tight end, Okawebunam.
Sure. We'll go with that. I call him O.
Oh, or okay.
Okay, yeah.
So, I mean, he had a touchdown with 4 catches, and they're one of the few teams I feel like really uses the tight end in their offense. And I have no idea if that's the reason why they had success. But, yeah, you're right. The Florida rushing attack really struggled, and, you know, you had to start – it looks like you tried to go late to using their pass rush against them by trying to put your running backs out in the flat. But that wasn't working either. It was just the throws weren't there, the blocking the wide receivers, I don't know.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of little things that just it was a death by 1,000 pinpricks, really.
Yeah. I think with the tight end there, one of the things that gave us, like, I guess turned out to be false hope, but like I think their running back went out, their tight end went out, their best receiver was injured, and it wasn't 100%. And you're thinking, okay, as they start to lose their key players, we're gonna get back in this game. We never did. It was just the weirdest thing. And you mentioned that third down. Our third downs for the whole game were 3 for 15. And that is just not good. Yeah, that's just not good.
That's Florida State bad.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say it's not good. I'm not gonna go there. And yeah, our rushing game, like 113 yards rushing, and when that's a strength, that's not gonna win you any games, And it's just, yeah, like you said, like little things here and there. And I don't think it was an effort thing. I think we were really playing hard. We were really trying. I don't think we were missing tackles. It was just kind of, they were wide open. Missed assignments are just beating us one-on-one. Wide open in the middle, and I think that's coaching. And it was so weird because I'm like, all right, any minute now, we're going to hit it. And right before the half, we scored that touchdown. I'm like, okay, we're down 11, but we're at home. We're getting the ball back. We just scored. We're good, and we didn't. And it was just it was the weirdest thing. It's kind of like Kentucky. The whole time you're like, okay, they're outplaying us, and they beat us here and there, but we'll get it together.
Yeah,
we just didn't. And I'm kind of concerned going forward now. I don't know if I should panic or anything like that, but I'm definitely concerned now.
Well, it's the schedule doesn't let up next week, but we'll talk about that game later on.
Yeah.
But there's certain to be a lot of questions. You have to look at the quarterback spot, obviously. But
yeah.
But you're right. Look internally and say, okay, how do we fail to prepare here? Mm-hmm. What exactly did we not see coming? How did Missouri get the best of us again?
Right.
What do we fix and move on from?
Yeah, I'm very curious as to what they're telling them. Like, what is left to play for? Like, you have one more SEC game. You have an Idaho game, and you have a Florida State game. If I'm the coach, I'm telling them, hey, you have chance for revenge against South Carolina still left, and you have a chance to end the streak against FSU.
Yeah. I
don't know if the Gators were thinking that, we lost to Georgia, there goes the East. What are we playing for? I don't know. I'm speculating. But if I'm the coaches, I'm in there telling them, hey, that was an awful loss, but you still have a lot to play for. Let's focus on getting revenge against South Carolina. Let's focus on going out strong in the SEC. And then after that, let's warm up against Idaho, and then let's focus on ending the streak against Florida State. Because if not, like, I'm worried it's going to be, why are we here? Let's not show up again.
Okay. Yeah, and there's only so much you can do to say, okay, if you're seniors, you got to play for that, and if you guys, some guys that are going to go to the NFL, you could say, okay, you need to play for. But that only goes so far because then you're playing for yourself and not as a team. So you got to be careful of that. Florida State fell in that trap really bad last year.
Yeah.
So, but I don't think it falls on deaf ears, and you're right to say that the middle of the season was the best part, and Florida was playing their best. But that also proved to me, especially the Vanderbilt game, that this is not a team that's going to give up like they used to.
Right.
And I agree with you. The effort was still there and late in the game.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just hoping it's coaching. I hope it's a bad matchup, and next week's better, because it was tough to see.
I understand. All right. So the Gators fall at home 38-17 against the Missouri Tigers. Any last thoughts on that game?
No, it's just I'm still overall excited about the season. I'm trying not to overreact because I thought 7-5, and I mean, I guess worst case scenario, we'll still be 7-5. I'm still counting us beating Idaho. So still happy. I'm trying to take a step back and remind myself, hey, we beat LSU, we beat Mississippi State, we got we beat a rival in Tennessee. We could still beat a rival in Florida State. We're going bowling. It's still a lot of good things.
Sure.
So I'm trying not to overreact too much, but this one stings a bit though. Georgia lost. I kind of got over quick because, they're pretty good, but this one's just kind of like, oh, it's like someone hit you in the gut. And you're just kind of like, what just happened?
Yeah.
But I'm still excited and still proud of this team.
All right. That's a good way to look at it. Absolutely. And going from one team, there were a lot of similarities to how the Gators played to how Florida State fared on the road against NC State. So the Noles take a rough loss in Raleigh, 47-28. I'm going to stick with my positives and then opportunities.
Yeah.
So
hey, you do you.
I understand why you wanted to flip the script, and there were certainly days, especially last week, that I didn't want to do that. But we'll ride it out. And surprisingly, I found quite a few positives from this loss. You limited Harmon, their best wide receiver, and probably the best in the conference. He only had 4 catches, one of which was a touchdown. But hey, he's that good. That's just going to happen. There's some effort plays. Asante Samuel early in the game on 4th and 1, Wolfpack goes for it. He gets a tackle that saves a touchdown. They would eventually score, but that was a good effort play, and I'm big on those.
Yeah.
Cam Akers did have a 20-plus yard run early in the game. You don't see too many of those this year, so always good when those come up. James Blackman, what a game.
Yeah.
29 of 41, 421 yards, which is a career best for him, and 4 touchdowns. And, man, he looked like he had great pocket awareness. He had mobility. Yeah. He ran some when he had to, but he was able to move around what is a very porous offensive line and buy a little bit of time every once in a while. In reality right now, Florida State's going to give up 4 to 5 sacks a game. We're just going to have to live with that reality the rest of the year and just plan around it. So he was able to really, really play well, and a lot of that is because Walt Bell, our offensive coordinator, actually took over play calling this week.
Okay.
Taggart said that he was very happy with that and is going to be turning it over to him at least probably through the rest of the year.
Okay.
So that's a good sign. Walt Bell is one of the offensive coordinators who sits in the box. Don't know how much that affects the game, but
right.
Certainly helped us against the Wolfpack, even though we only scored 28. Brian Burns did get a pass deflection and a tackle for loss, and he was really good about being in the right place at the right time. He also actually did have on one play, I just don't see this very often. He was on the defensive line, and he drops back into pass coverage and runs down a wide receiver on one play. I was just impressed. It was a short pass, like maybe 5 to 8 yards, but still.
Yeah.
He's athletic, and he's if I had to say pick your best athlete on the team, he's it this year. Cam Akers is a close second. He just hasn't shown it. And maybe Francois was the third, but he didn't play this game. If Francois, some of the other things about the offense, we started feeding Tamari and Terry. My favorite drive was the first touchdown drive. We get to 3rd down, we throw a long pass to him, we say, hey, let's try it again, and it ended up being a touchdown. So back-to-back passes, and that came after we were down 17-0. It turns out we would never get within 13 points the rest of the game because NC State was relentless with the run. But despite Blackman's one interception, he just made a misread, and a guy drove back into coverage, and he threw it right to him. Other than that, he had a career day, and so did DJ Matthews. Got his first touchdown of the year. He was hitting gaps, and I think he totaled 10 catches on the game. Cam Akers had a few catches, one for a TD, receiving, and we did stop them from getting a touchdown on 4 drives, 3, not 7.
Okay.
So that helped make it not as bad. Otherwise, they could have put 60 up probably.
Yeah.
So there are the positives for the game, and there were a lot more than I kind of expected, probably. And the opportunities, those abound as usual. The defense has just been getting outplayed the last 2 games. Give up over 100 points and just chunks of yards. What was really surprising, and we talked about this last week, is how much running the NC State did. This really just came out of nowhere. This is not a rushing team.
Right.
Gillespie was just all over the place. They were lining up 6 and 7 guys on the line. They went for it on 4th down, I think 3 or 4 times, and they got all of them. Early on in the game, we actually had a decent couple of chunks, and if you're a Florida State fan, you're looking at yourself like, okay, if we start on the 20-yard line or better, this is good field position for us. That's how much of a struggle it's been this season. And on the first drive of the game, we're going down. We're at midfield. I'm like, hey, it's 3rd and 2. We're actually moving the ball. We're almost in field goal range. And one of our best running back on the year, Jacquez Patrick, fumbles the ball. This is a very rare thing for him, and he's having a great season. But given our rushing struggles, this was just something you just hate to see. The secondary, you don't even have to really have watched the game to know how bad they did. Pass interference just at the worst times.
Yeah.
In the red zone, especially on the second drive, Asante Samuels Jr. just got torched. We got one late in the 3rd. 16 penalties on the day. That's just can't get it done. The secondary was even getting blocked by the wide receivers on like screen passes and rushing downs, so they weren't getting any push at all. You had Jalen Woodby. We had a big push into the backfield on a rushing play in the red zone, a 2nd down. Stopped him for a loss, and then he slings him down at the end to just go ahead and give them 1st and goal.
Right.
And they ended up scoring. But even despite how much struggles we had, Finley and his wide receivers are just on the same page. And there were plays where you're like, man, he just dropped in the perfect position. There's nothing we could have done. Mm-hmm. Even the perfect defense. There was one guy who was completely covered, threw within a 6-inch window, and it's caught. So there was a couple of those too where I'm like, there's just nothing going our way. Nothing going our way this game, and it's just going to continue to be that way.
Right. So,
never within 13 points, kind of covered that. We did go for it on 4th and 1. This was in the 3rd quarter. We come out of the locker room, and we're driving down, and we're on our own 35. Given our offense and given the opponent we're playing on the road, this actually probably was the right call. I would have just preferred that they pass it instead of run, given how bad our offensive line cannot block or get a push.
Right.
So, either way. And then another thing that continues to surprise me, good or bad, was how much we decide to take kickoff returns. Instead of taking the fair catch at the 25, we're getting more and more guys involved in getting a chance to do returns. So Helton got some, Harrison got some. We did have over 100 yards of return. So does it work out? Yeah. I think when you have an offense like this, you have to kind of take a chance. And we talked about this earlier when the rule came out with the fair catch. Florida State is not going to be able to move the ball. 30 points is just a dream for us, really, at this point. So you're going to have to get those points somewhere else. So, any thoughts from your side on what you saw from the game?
I think 28's pretty. I mean, that's pretty good. But you got to have your defense not give up 44. Mm-hmm. I think 28's a good number to shoot for. But I think one thing that stuck out for me was definitely Blackman. I said at the beginning of the season, I think he's better for this offense. And he could chuck it, and I think he has a little better presence in the pocket. So that's definitely a bright spot going forward. But like you said, though, with the untimely fumbles and the penalties on the defensive backs just kill you. Any momentum you had going, there's always something like that just stopped it in its tracks. And that's going to be super frustrating for the corners. So do you have 2 corners named Samuels? Is that accurate? Am I?
Yeah. So there's
I watched that get confused.
There's Asante Samuels, and then there's Stanford Samuels III. I think Asante Samuels is junior, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, gotcha. All right, that threw me off a bit. Okay.
Yeah, and we have Levante Taylor. He was either injured or rumors or maybe like the effort thing. He didn't get to travel with the team, so he wasn't even at this game. He usually would have started on the other side.
Yeah. Although you do have Burns, the rest of the team's not helping out, and especially in the secondary. And it seemed like, like you said, North Carolina State ran a lot, but there was a couple of times that their receivers got either a lucky bounce, but just made that effort over a corner. And here and there where I really think it was the corners that hurt y'all with this game. But Blackman going forward, I think, is real good. And he, I don't know if scares me is the right word, but I'm very concerned with his ability versus our secondary in the game at the end of the season.
Oh, already looking forward to it. Okay.
Yeah. I noticed that. I was like, okay, I can handle Francois, but Blackman's ability and Terry, now he's coming along. I'm a little concerned. If we don't figure out what we're doing in the secondary, that's a matchup that I don't like.
Yeah, and I can understand why. I mean, Terry at one point led the ACC or nation in yards per catch because he only catches 4 to 5 a game.
Right.
But they're always like 40, 50 yards, if not longer. So it's crazy to think about. And you got DJ Matthews coming in. Probably the biggest trend that I saw out of this was the younger guys getting more action.
Okay.
DJ Matthews, Nyquan Murray was suspended the first half, so he doesn't get a chance to play, and he caught 2 or 3 balls, which were decent. But the main contributors, you saw Helton against Clemson coming out. You see some more guys getting some time, and I don't know what that speaks to on, are we chasing the winning record? Are we trying to get more guys time, and that's why we're struggling here? I don't think so. But to have good depth, you're going to need them to get touches and experience. So I'm definitely good with it, and the recipe we had earlier wasn't quite working.
Yeah. In this game, you saw the potential and you saw flashes of your athletes being athletes on offense. But defense, they weren't. They were just allowing anything on the ground and in the air.
Yeah, and that's what's been surprising to me. I mean, the secondary we knew. We had some guys out. We have some struggles there. Linebacker, a lot of struggles. But the defensive line's been the anchor. In the last 2 games, they've been neutralized. Now, they're playing against probably 2 of the best offensive lines they're going to see this season, so that might account for some of that, which is why Burns had no sacks in those 2 games.
Right.
But when that area doesn't excel, then the rest of the defense is very susceptible. And my biggest concern going forward is that now the weaknesses are very much exposed.
Yeah.
And they're going to be able to scheme accordingly, and we certainly can't come back to win and score enough.
Yeah. I don't know. I like Blackman, but he needs to have some help in the running game, though. They need to stop fumbling. They're not helping him one bit. Like you said, they're gonna give up the sacks. It's gonna happen. But I see potential. I definitely do.
Yeah, you come out as encouraged, because what I saw with Blackman, real quickly on the talent, you were noticing the athletes. Yes, I agree. And that's the reason why we should be able to keep these games closer. Just by sheer, Florida State has good recruiting, has good athletes. We shouldn't be losing games by this much. And so that's what's concerning is just matching up 1-on-1. This should be closer games, but that's a side note. Blackman, I've noticed just the way he would go to the sideline after maybe a stalled drive or after the interception or an incomplete pass. He would be mad at himself.
Right.
And I don't know if Francois, he was more like mad at everyone else or mad at the world. I don't know. But Blackman seemed to take ownership, and he definitely gave some excitement, and there's been a lot of talk about how a little more respect amongst the players. So that could be the spark this team needs to finish the year.
Yeah. I could see them rallying around him. I really can.
And it's not your common backup because he just played an entire year already.
Yeah, right.
And real quickly, just a thought on the quarterbacks. This is what we kind of expected with the redshirt rule. You either saw after 4 weeks into the season or with 4 weeks left, you would start to see some quarterback changes around the nation.
Yeah. Yep.
And our schools have done that already.
Yep. And with the Gators, Mullen said that Emory Jones is going to play in 2 more games.
Okay.
He has played in 2. He's going to play in 2 more. So I'm interested to see which ones. I'd assume South Carolina and Florida State, but I don't know. It could be Idaho. I don't know. I'm not sure. Yeah, but it's interesting to see the new strategy towards the end of the year.
I agree. It's pretty much out the window with Blackman because he played like 1 down against Miami, but that still counts as game. And he played this one, and I think he had mop-up duty against Wake Forest, so he's already played 3.
Okay.
So he's pretty much lost his redshirt opportunity.
Yeah, I definitely think though he's your best bet going forward.
Yeah. I agree. So, all right. Well, that'll wrap up the Noles' unfortunate loss on the road. We had some other teams losing on the road, at home.
Yeah.
So, why don't we start with, I don't know, take FIU, FAU, Chris. What were your thoughts on
Okay. This was crazy. I don't know if you got a chance to watch it. The score is not a reflection of the game at all.
Okay.
This was so FAU, who was reeling, and went on the road against FIU, who was playing real good, and they beat them 49-14.
Yep.
And you look at the score, and it's kind of like you do a double take, right? But if you watch the game or you followed it along at all, in the third quarter, it's tied 14-14. And FAU just scores 35 straight points, 28 in the fourth, to just put them away. And it was just like earlier in the season, if you had said this was going to be a score, I'd say absolutely. Mm-hmm. They're going to blow them out. But the way it happened, the way the teams are playing, everything leading up to it, just kind of like very unconventional. But kudos to FAU, they got their mojo back and figured out a win in a timely manner too, because you got to start thinking about bowl eligibility if they lose this one. But now they get to 4 wins and they have a chance at that. And FIU, who was playing great, especially at home, playing them tough, and all of a sudden, I don't know what just happened. They just forgot that they had an extra quarter and thought it was hockey, and you just played 3. I don't know. It was weird. A very strange game. But FAU gets the dub and back in the winning ways.
Yeah, I saw a couple of observations I took from this game. This is what you expected FAU to do all along, and this could be really what turns the rest of their season around. Mm-hmm. For the Owls, this happened earlier in the year, so they were fortunate to reel off 9 or 10 wins last season. But you had to preserve some kind of semblance of Conference USA success, and this is kind of what this does for them. They give FIU their first conference loss, but they're still right in contention to win the division and possibly win the conference, and FAU's essentially eliminated. Mathematically, they're probably still in it, but it's just not going to be there for them. They faced off against another Florida team, UCF, and did pretty poorly. They gained some respect for themselves. They really played for Kiffin, and we've talked a lot about his coaching. I'm not a fan. You and Jared, that's fine. Go ahead and believe in him. But but Butch Davis had some momentum, and to me, this tells me that FAU just has more skilled players, and they're better competition in coaching. They just hadn't showed it to this point, which is why both you and I picked FIU to win this game. Yeah,
I really thought that it was going to be like the first 3 quarters were playing exactly like I thought it was going to play out. But that last quarter, man. And they were smart. Singletary again. He's their workhorse, and they rode him and 184 for three touchdowns. So, like you said, he's the best athlete on the field. Give it to him. Give the ball. And they did that.
So good for them. Going to get to bowl eligibility. probably get a bowl game at home. Is it the Beach Bowl? Is that what's over in Boca Raton? Something like that.
Yeah.
Oh, good for them. All right. So on to another Florida team that won, the only other one, and that would be the UCF Knights. They had a 52-40 win at home against Temple on a Thursday night.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to say it. I like Thursday night games.
Yeah.
I was fortunate enough to actually attend this one. And I don't have to worry about keeping track of 14,000 other scores while I'm there.
Okay.
So I kind of honed in my attention, and the atmosphere was great. And I feel bad because we have such a limited time to bring the fans the synopsises and the previews. But you were texting me during the game asking me about their uniforms, and
right.
I need to be better about getting ahead of this kind of stuff. So I apologize that we didn't give more information, but let me give you a short history real quick. FTU, Florida Technological University, started in Orlando in the 1960s as an academic university with focus on engineering and space. So Orlando is only about 31 miles from Cape Canaveral. And when this university was established and built, it was all about aeronautics and space exploration. They also said, we don't want athletics at all. So there was no football program, there was no tennis, no women's volleyball, no soccer, nothing. Well, they soon caught on that this kind of stuff makes money, so they eventually brought in athletics. And so they eventually changed their name to University of Central Florida, and they changed from the Golden Knights to just the Knights. The emphasis when the school opened was all about the space program, and it was basically a feeder school right into NASA. And that was the emphasis of everything. So these uniforms and jerseys honored that tradition. Did you know, Chris, that the 50-yard line at UCF Spectrum Stadium is the exact same latitude line as Kennedy Space Center in Cape Canaveral, Florida?
I did after watching the game because the announcers mentioned it.
Pretty
but prior
cool.
to that, no.
Yeah, pretty cool. I think I even saw at the coin toss. They had it was made out of like alloy from another spaceship or something. It's they brought out all the stops. The constellations on the uniforms tell a story as well. They even had the old mascot, which was a citronaut, on the uniforms. First time they'd done that, so they were honoring the tradition of UCF. So good for them. Yeah. For the game itself, Temple, as I mentioned, was one of the best defenses they would face all year, and it just didn't matter. UCF still continued to score. They scored 52 pretty comfortably. Although it was slow to get started, for one of the few times this season, they did trail and did have to come back. Temple scored, this was the biggest takeaway to me, scored even with terrible field position. They were able to march down the field repeatedly and score on long drives.
Right.
That to me was impressive. Also a bad sign for UCF's defense. I thought they were improving a bit. We knew their rushing defense was susceptible. Now we know it is. And the pass defense is usually successful because UCF is up so much, teams have to pass more, they make more mistakes. Mm-hmm. And this was one of the most complete games an opponent's played against UCF. So hats off to Temple, but still wasn't enough. I think that defensive coordinator Randy Shannon has to look back a little bit over the last two games and be a little concerned. They were gashed on both sides, and for the first time this year, not that this mattered too much, but their kicker missed because the field goal attempt was blocked. Okay. Other than that, you still had good special teams play. Their punter, Mac Loudermilk, huge fan of his, by the way. He does unique celebrations. He's a good Twitter follow.
Okay.
He'll bust out a different celebration each time. This one happened to be an impressive golf swing. So
okay.
I retweet some of those on the account, so the fans can take a look at those as well. But the Knights do come away with a good victory. Looking at the rest of the season, I knew that this one would probably give them the most trouble, and they came away with the win. The perception of, there was a close win against a lesser opponent. They were still undefeated in conference play with Temple, right. And they're not too far removed from a conference championship. So they're not a terrible opponent, but they don't have the best schedule. And this is the same team that lost to Villanova early in the year. But they've since changed things, switched quarterbacks, and I still think it's a good win for the Knights.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a good back and forth early on, but once UCF got that lead, it was over. Mm-hmm. And that's what happened. And kudos to them. And I honestly, like, when I first turned on the game, I thought it was Memphis playing with the blue that they had, the blue and black in the uniform. And I was like, no, it's definitely a UCF game, but it looks like Memphis is out there. But yeah, they continue to roll, and Kenzie Milton is really good at quarterback.
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
So I think that it's a good thing he started this game versus their backup. You know, he's been dinged up and he sat out the last game. It's pretty comfortable to say that they don't win this game without him. So
yeah, I think he's a difference. He really is. So good.
All right.
All right. So then we have Duke, Miami. Miami losing at home against Duke in a wet one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there was a downpour. And it's weird because I don't live too far from the stadium, and we were dry.
No way.
But we were good the whole time, but they were just in a downpour in a wet, soggy field, even to the point where the next game the Dolphins were concerned about their game.
Wow.
But they lose 20-12, and all their 12 points came in the second quarter. They got shut out in the second half.
Yeah.
And just I don't know what's going on with them. They're rotating their quarterbacks again. They're trying to figure out the quarterback situation. And I don't know if they have any answers. I don't know. I just don't know if we know now Rozier's not the guy, but I thought Perry might be the guy that's going to be what's going to spark them some victories, but he's not either.
Yeah.
They did have a pair of 100-yard rushers in Homer and Dallas, which is a nice bright spot for them, but they got their touchdowns, but that was it. Their defense forced one turnover, but still not enough. And Duke just dominated in the second half, outscoring them 13-0. And I think it's the third game in a row they lost. They had a 3-game losing streak. Yeah. Don't know what's going on with Miami, but they need to figure it out pretty soon.
Yes, and we were both were incorrect, and we thought Miami would bounce back. And the undoing really was the 3 turnovers they had on offense. So 2 of those were inside the 12-yard line. They essentially gave Duke the points.
Right.
Did you by the way say Duke did the jump pass?
Yeah,
not just
twice.
Once, but twice. Back to back.
Yeah.
Hey, when
you're
struggling night on offense, sometimes you got to pull out stuff like that, especially when you know you're in the red zone and it's raining. You got to score. Right. And look, if you're a team that you're going to face probably 2 games like this a year, where there's going to be bad weather, your wide receivers are dropping passes, your offense is not going to win it for you, which was the surprising thing to me. You see 2 100-yard rushers, and Dallas to me is the better of the 2, but they are equally good. And you have Cager, who's out on the outside, catching passes, moving the ball down the field on drives. And yet you still can't muster that. It's that's what was surprising to me, is that they even forced a turnover and they still were just inept and couldn't score.
Yeah, it was with that jump pass. Okay, I'll give you the first one surprised you, but the second one, come on, it just happened. But that was a crazy catch by that. I think it was a tight end.
Yeah,
he tipped it to himself. It was a crazy. That's one of those, like, after that happens, like, okay, we're not winning this game. If they're getting plays like that, we're not winning this game. But yeah, the quote unquote big 3 find themselves losing again and can't find themselves a quarterback. Yet you see UCF, who's 20, 21 games in a row.
21 in a row, yeah.
They have a quarterback, and a pretty good one. So that's how you can see how important finding the play caller is, or the guy who's running the show, how important it is to have a good quarterback.
Yeah. I think if I had to rank it, though, Florida State probably should feel the most confident about theirs with Blackman going forward. Second would be the Gators. I still think Frank still has the chance to turn it around and make some things happen the rest of this year. But Miami, it's just a dumpster fire at that position. N'Kosi Perry comes out, and you think 3 games, okay, he's at the rest of the season. And then you hit Virginia. you hit the first half of Florida State, you hit this Duke game, and nothing makes sense anymore for the Canes.
Yeah, and you said it pretty well. Like, as bad as I feel about our quarterback situation, I feel a lot better than I do with Miami's.
Yeah.
I got to figure something out with them.
Yep. All right. So Miami suffers a loss at home. Their season is completely different than when it started with, and probably a failure by most standards.
Oh, absolutely.
South Florida Bulls, similar dire circumstances. You think you start off undefeated. We knew they had plenty of games they shouldn't have won, but they did. They get exposed by Houston, and then you play Tulane and you lose big. They lost 41-15. This game was never close. Tulane, who, not a good team, 3 wins on the year coming into this game, completely stopped the run. I think Cronkite only had somewhere in the teens or 20s rushing.
Right.
Barnett was their leading rusher, their quarterback. He had 59 yards and 16 carries, and they completely shut him down. It was impressive. Now, I know Tulane has had some interesting games. They nearly beat Wake Forest, and they have some skilled positions, but it's just, this is not a good win. This is not a good look for Charlie Strong, to be honest.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go ahead and call it now. I think Charlie Strong leaves South Florida and takes the Kansas job this year.
Kansas?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
They just fired their head coach this week. I don't know that the American's a good fit, and Charlie Strong is probably a better coach, and he's been in the Big 12 before. I don't know. Something tells me just Florida football intuition.
Okay.
Give me Charlie Strong as the Jayhawks coach next season.
All right. All right. Is that a lateral move?
I guess you would have to say it's a move up because it's a Power 5 school, right?
Yeah.
You'd have to say it, but then it's Kansas.
Right, exactly.
It's the same school that hired Charlie Weiss and Mark Mangino, so I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know, man. There's still a lot of we'll see how that game with UCF goes first before.
Yeah, I guess so.
Because it's at home and they play to their competition for the most part.
Yeah, except for this game, you're right. They did. They played Houston really well. They scored a lot. Tulane just had their number, but every game up to that point, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, but that's interesting. I can see you saying he's leaving, but Kansas really threw me off.
Well, we'll see. I mean, you got some jobs opening up, and it's November now. We can talk about the carousel that's about to start.
Right.
Thinking about this weekend, you've probably got Rutgers might have an opening. I think North Carolina is going to fire Fedora. I don't see how that happens. There's some other schools that have some bad wins, but they've probably just got a new coach in the last 1 or 2 years. So, if you're stretching, you might say Auburn's tired of their coach. I don't know, but that's a rough.
They just signed him to a.
That's what makes
extension.
It interesting. But I don't know. I heard rumors, and it's still possible. I think.
I know there are some boosters that have deep pockets and are willing. So you're right.
Yep. I mean, Florida State had that in 2005 or 6. When Jeff Bowden was offensive coordinator, they said, whatever his contract is, we're gonna pay him out so he can leave.
Right.
So, yeah, you got some things moving around. That what would keep Charlie Strong here is his ties to Florida. I mean, really, other than his stint with the Texas Longhorns, he's been exclusively here. South Florida, he was the defensive coordinator for the Gators, and he has a lot of ties to the state. So that would be what keeps him around. But if the money's good enough. Kansas is flat out tired of losing. They have to be.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. That's an interesting call. I like that. I like it though.
Yep. We'll keep tabs on it for you guys. We'll give you as much as we know.
Okay.
Yeah, but anyway, so that rounds out this week, I believe.
Yeah.
And yes, a rough one indeed it was. Why don't we look on to greener pastures? Let's look forward. We've only got 3 weeks left of regular season. It's hard to believe.
I know.
So, the Gators, looking forward, they are now 6-3. What is on the horizon next week for Florida?
All right, we have a noon kickoff against South Carolina, and South Carolina's they won their last 2, and we've lost our last 2. But we're against Ole Miss and Tennessee, so. Take that as you will. They played A&M tough. They've been playing pretty people pretty tough. They did beat Missouri, so we're favored early, but I'm just not confident in us at all right now. I'm just not. And one of the reasons is Bentley from the quarterback is pretty decent. He's not the best, but he's decent. He's serviceable, and Muschamp's gonna have a really good defense. Although they're giving up a lot this year, he's still good, and he knows what he's doing on that side of the ball. And there's some familiarity.
I got you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. All right. Just with the program. So I don't know if we can't figure out what we're doing in the secondary. I'm afraid we're into a long game again. I could see a scenario where Trask sparks our offense, and if we figure out what we're doing on special teams, and if we just turn the ball, cause some turnovers, we have a chance to win. I just don't see it, man. I just don't see how we win this game. There are ways, and we're going to be favored, and it's home and ranked and yada yada yada. But until I see it, I can't really go with us winning, because I see the last 3 games, and we just don't look like a team that can. I don't know. I'm not feeling confident about us right now.
Okay, it's understandable. I think the one thing that you can look as something hopeful is that South Carolina's defense has not been Muschamp-esque this year.
Yeah,
and they've been pretty porous in a lot of ways, and they've given up a lot of points. And I miss the old days when they would win 20-17. What happened? And maybe it's the offense has evolved around him. I don't know. It's hard to say. But you mentioned Bentley. The rigors of the SEC schedule we've talked about a lot, but
right.
That also means Florida's hungry for a win. That also means South Carolina's due for a loss. But
yeah.
I would imagine most people have the same reservations you do, but the special teams can carry you through some games like this, so let's hope that's the case. But I agree. I think South Carolina probably wins this one, unfortunately.
Yeah, if we get ahead early, get a touchdown early, and the crowd gets into it, I think we could take this, but I just don't see it, man. I know that we can, and I know that we've had moments in games where our defense stands out, our offense does enough, our special team stands out. But after this last week, I'm scratching my head. I'm like, I don't know. I just don't see where it's come from this week, especially now that we don't have a we don't know who our quarterback is. On top of everything, I don't know. I don't think South Carolina's going to blow us out like Missouri did. I think we're going to fight better. But I think South Carolina by 10. 27-17. The games that we've lost, we've scored 16, 17, and 17. So if we get to 20, I think we win. But I don't know if we do.
Very interesting observation. Good numbers there, Chris. I like that.
So if we get to 20, game. We got this, but I just don't see it. I say 27-17.
I'll take the Gamecocks by 2.
2, okay.
I don't know how that plays out. Kick a late field goal, or they're up by 9 and you score a meaningless touchdown. One way or the other. How about that?
Right. Okay. I hope I'm wrong, but
yeah.
Just when I think, like I said before, just when I think I know this team, I don't. So we'll see.
Yeah, I don't know that South Carolina has too much identity either. So it's very interesting to see.
That is a very good point. They've been up and down, and especially that last week for Ole Miss. Back and forth all game, 48-44. Did not see that score coming.
Yeah, that baffles me. Knowing what Muschamp put up 3 years ago on defense, it just I don't get it.
So,
all right. Well, the road gets tougher. I'm going to quote Chevy Chase in the movie Fletch. It takes a big man to admit he's wrong. I am not a big man. And maybe I will be for a minute, I suppose.
Okay.
I said preseason Florida State would go 8-4. That is no longer on the table. Now it is, can you win 2 of your next 3 to go to a bowl game and extend the streak?
Right.
So, let's be honest, it's not going to happen against Notre Dame. On the road at South Bend, Florida State plays at 7:30 on the Notre Dame Broadcasting Company, known as NBC.
Okay. I was looking for a loop there.
There's projected to be snow.
What?
Florida State's wearing their all-white jerseys, and we're a 17-point underdog.
Yeah.
I don't see a lot of hope here. The offensive line, it's just not getting it done. I think we have 8 different line combinations in 9 games, something silly like that. We've had to play musical chairs with the positions, the guards moving around. We've only had one person on the offensive line play all 9 games, and he was our center, but one game, let's try him at guard, see how that goes. And it's been really tough to get over that. It's frustrating to look at a team who just can't run up the middle.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you have offensive linemen that aren't even getting out of their stance, and you've got guys in the backfield. It is very frustrating to see. If I'm going to point to any ways that Florida State keeps this close, there's 2 things. It's number one, the history of this game. There's been so many times Florida State Notre Dame has played classics. Most recently in 2014. Back in the 90s, we played them in 93, and I think we played them in a bowl game or in Orlando one of those years in the 90s too. And they've always been very, very good. So I actually think that the first half of this game, because of Blackman, because of the way Florida State showed up against Miami, Taggart and Walt Bell pull out a lot of stops here. And I think it looks like the first half against the Hurricanes. I really do. I think they're going to come out swinging. I don't know if we take a lead, but we are going to keep it close for a while. And I know this is probably the time of year you have to do it. You have to spark your team. You have to continue to give them a reason to play, like you mentioned with Dan Mullen. And I think this is probably the time to do it. Now, it probably won't last very long. And it'll be enough that it gets the fan base excited, and it gives Notre Dame a scare. We've all seen Notre Dame play. They've struggled against Pittsburgh. They struggled against Northwestern. They blew out Wake Forest. They struggled against Michigan, but won. And they struggled, really almost lost to Vanderbilt. You know, there's a lot of games that Notre Dame hasn't looked top form. They certainly look like a top 4 team. If you can limit the plays of Ian Book and stop them from gashing you deep, then you can start to frustrate them, especially if Brian Burns gets loose. If the defensive line can get back into their form, then you have a lot of ways that you can make them very, very nervous. And hey, if you keep it one possession, you never know how the game plays out in the end. But I think Florida State, I oddly enough think Florida State covers the spread in this one. 17 is a lot of points.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we've lost by a lot the last 2 weeks, so I understand why that number is there. But I think Florida State loses by 10, 12 and gives them quite a game for a long time.
Yeah. All the points you just said was the points I was going to make.
Oh, how about that?
Like, literally verbatim. Starting off, I was going to start off with Notre Dame, just how they tend to kind of play down a little bit to their competition, and they're not as dominant as teams like Clemson and Alabama as far as higher-ranked teams. So they tend to let people hang around a little bit. I think there's some spark with Blackman. I think that Florida State does give them a half, maybe a little bit more than a half. And you're right, 17 is a lot of points. I think, at the end of the day, Notre Dame is just going to be too much for them. Plus, now you have this the cold factor, which Florida State's not used to. So I think it's going to be closer than it should, and the experts think, and be a fun game into the third. But I think Notre Dame does go away with it.
Yep. And what I'm hoping, we talked last week about how does Florida State look in the first quarter against NC State. And it didn't do so well, but in the second and the third, you started to see a little bit more, and then late in the fourth. It's even more important like that, to start off hot on the road.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't play well and they're getting pressure on the defensive line, it can get ugly quick.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Right. So potentially a bad weekend again for us.
I know.
Potentially. All right. So moving along, Miami goes on the road against Georgia Tech. And this is it's a coin toss to me. Maybe slightly into Georgia Tech being at home. But Miami's defense has got to figure out what they're doing, especially against a team that likes to just with a triple option so unique. Even though they're familiar with them than most teams are, still that's a tough thing to scheme against, and they have to figure out what their quarterback is doing, and it's going to be tough to figure out what your quarterback's doing on the road. So I probably would go Georgia Tech on this one, though. Although I think the line. What's the line? Okay, Tech by 3. So I think that's pretty accurate.
Okay. Well, we finally have a difference in opinion. I think Miami rights the ship and they win.
Oh, okay.
I've seen a lot of time Georgia Tech does this. They have blips in the season where they start to get hot, and they change quarterbacks. Their earlier quarterback, Taquan Marshall, just couldn't get it done.
Right.
They made a switch, and in that type of offense, your quarterback has to be successful throwing like 4 passes a game, and you couldn't even do that. So you also can't turn over the ball, and you have to make the right reads, obviously. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I've seen Georgia Tech get hot like this, like they beat Virginia Tech very handily, but as we've also seen, the problem with the triple option is it is only meant to waste time and be ahead. If you get behind, you're completely done, and that's why you see such extremes. They may win 49-21, but they may lose 56-28. And that's because if they're down, they're down. They're not coming back. They can't score quickly. I'm going to dare to say Army's running a better version of triple option now than Georgia Tech is.
Okay.
I saw how they played, and they've got it going hot. Their coach has gotten to win 9-10 wins a year. They played Oklahoma close. They had a drive last week where they held the ball 12 and a half minutes. I mean, that's one drive takes up the entire quarter.
Right.
That just isn't fair.
Right.
So, give me the Canes. To go
back
on the winning run. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I can see scenarios where they do win, but I'm not confident in their quarterbacks.
That's a good point.
Right now. So, if it was at home, maybe, but then you saw how they were at home this past weekend.
Right.
So,
yeah.
I think a lot of it, though, was the weather. The weather really played a big factor into that.
Probably.
I like the 3-point spread. So
okay.
It's interesting to see.
All right.
How that plays out.
Very, very good. So Miami faces the triple option this week. So does UCF.
Okay.
They are hosting Navy. Navy having a rough go at it. They only have 2 wins on the year. They beat a Division II school and they beat Memphis, and that's all they have to their name. Haven't played well. I don't know if it's the athletes they have, just a down year, recruiting wise. I couldn't tell you, but I know that UCF and Orlando should be excited about this game because Navy has never traveled to Orlando.
Oh, okay.
And one of the things that was pointed out when UCF went to Navy last year is this is the Naval Academy. It doesn't even have university in its name. They're all about the tradition and the military presence. So their stadium, there's a football field, but it's more of a commemoration to their service.
Okay.
And so you play teams like this or teams like even Hawaii that have rich traditions outside of the sport. It's really kind of a neat experience.
Right.
So the problem is, yes, Navy's having a down year. You have to be very, very careful against the triple option for the reasons we just mentioned with the high scoring opportunities and how long they can hold the ball. So, UCF has a great offense, but if they're not on the field, they can't score.
Mm-hmm.
So, UCF does need to be very, very careful, especially given the struggles they've had last 2 weeks on defense. However, I'm still going to take UCF to win.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I can see them. I could see them giving them a quarter, honestly, just because you don't know what to expect. You're not used to this, but UCF should just handle their business after that, though.
Navy and Army and Georgia Tech are the types of teams you win the coin toss, you take the ball first.
Okay.
Go down and score, and then let them waste all the time they want.
Yeah. It's interesting the differences in offensive philosophy. Yeah. All right. Next we have FAU. They're back at home versus Western Kentucky. And Western Kentucky has 1 win on the season. So it kind of gives you an indication of how they're doing and how this game should go, especially now that FAU got that huge win over FIU. FAU rolls. They just Singletary, just give him the ball every play. You'll be fine.
Yep. Nothing to add to that. I agree.
Yeah.
All right. South Florida, I think their luck has run out. And this week they go to Cincinnati, who's not terribly great, but does keep games really close. I know that they're not so much of a I'm going to play to my opponent as the Bulls are. They also don't score a lot of points generally. But South Florida just didn't do it against Tulane. That was kind of a one-off. So I think this is a close game for a while, but I think Cincinnati wins. And I think this is setting up the matchup that we were hoping for. The South Florida UCF game is still going to be good, but the UCF Cincinnati game is going to be better.
Okay.
It also, let's see, Cincinnati has one conference loss. If Cincinnati were to beat UCF in 2 weeks, they would have the lead in the division because they would have the tiebreaker. So there's quite a bit on the line still for UCF. You haven't even won the division yet.
Right.
It'll be a de facto, I think, AAC East.
Oh, okay.
I believe, if the math serves correctly.
Okay. Championship game.
Yep. Now, Temple's still out there. Their only one loss was to UCF, so UCF has a tiebreaker on them. So if UCF were to slip up, then Temple would be the leader because they beat Cincinnati head-to-head. It gets really weird.
Okay.
Basically, UCF wins, they're in. They control their own destiny.
Right. Okay. That'd be it's interesting. Do you know the line is on that game?
I'm not sure.
Did you mention that? Okay.
It's Monday. We're recording this Monday night. Sometimes I checked earlier today. It wasn't out yet.
Oh, okay.
Monday night, Tuesday. They have some, but they kind of move around.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Not all of the lines are out.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Then we have FIU. Let's see if you can figure this out. They're on the road versus UTSA.
University of Texas San Antonio, the Roadrunners.
Okay. The Roadrunner. Okay, good for you, because I didn't know off the top of my head. I figured, I was like, I'm assuming it's Texas San Antonio.
Yeah.
But, I don't know what their mascot is. The Roadrunners. Good call. Good call on you. But you're from Texas, so it makes sense. Makes sense. They've only won 3 games, and although FIU had a rough fourth quarter, they still have a pretty good season. I think they should handle their business in this one.
Yeah, I like it. It's like I said, fan of Butch Davis. He had some rough days at UNC, and he ended badly when he was at the Hurricanes. But yeah, I'm a fan overall. I like him better than Kiffin. I'll go with that.
Yeah.
Okay. Eventually, I'll lay off of him, but he's one of those coaches, just like Charlie Strong. He may get hired away this year.
Oh yeah, I think so. Yeah, that's a good. Because I don't like him. His personality, not the best, but I think he's good for that school. I don't know if he's good for any bigger school.
And I kind of have a similar approach to Spurrier. I'm like, God, the guy can coach, but man, he rubs me the wrong way. I just can't do it. So, good for him. And he may be one of the coaches that are talked about in the offseason. We'll see.
Right. Cool.
Okay. I think that wraps it up. We got all the teams covered. We've previewed last week, or recap last week, previewed this week. We have a lot to look forward to. The fans have plenty of things to share with us too, though, Chris. And there's probably some things that they could add to the positive opportunities, and they could tell us how we're wrong, or they can correctly pronounce Missouri's tight end name. I don't know. But if they wanted to reach out to us anyway, how could they do that?
Oh, yeah. There are plenty of ways to do that. Start off with the website, FloridaFocusPodcast.libsyn.com. Libsyn, Libsyn. Facebook and YouTube, Florida Focus Podcast. Please hit us up on Twitter. A lot of activity there at Florida Focus Pod. Feel free to email us with your pronunciations with FloridaFocusPodcast@yahoo.com. We have a Snapchat and Instagram account, FL Focus Pod. And if you are willing, please support us through our Patreon account.
Absolutely. And we appreciate all the support so far. It's meant a lot to us. And, November's ramping up. We've got a lot of really good games, a lot of meaningful games coming up.
Yeah.
And once the season hits the bowls and we have a little more flexibility, Chris and I can do a little more than just the weekly recaps and previews. So look forward to some interesting content coming in about a month or so.
Yeah. And before we go, I'm really interested about the Florida State matchup tomorrow night.
Basketball, yeah.
On the hardwood, yes.
Very good.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to be one of those fans like, hey, we have a shot, and if we win, like, hey, at least we won this game. Right. No, actually, the basketball programs have been pretty decent. Florida State's upset some of the Gator teams that were better in this matchup. And, I'm excited, too.
Yeah. Florida State's ranked 17th going into this, and they're at home. And like you said, they've always had Florida's number. They just always have. I think they've only got a 4-game win streak or something like that.
Sounds right.
Versus us. I think they just match up. The guys that they have, the length, it's just a tough matchup for the style that we play. But I'm excited. It's interesting, though, that they're starting first game of the season versus each other. It's usually
about a couple weeks in.
A couple weeks. Yeah, usually it's always been like the I think the Friday night, maybe even before the Florida football game.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Or it's always that week, but now interesting to see how that'll affect the games. But it's pretty cool to see basketball, college basketball, and football at the same time. I always like when they overlap.
Yeah, always fun. Florida State basketball, they got a tendency to turn the ball over a lot and use that against themselves. They try to drive too quickly and overthrow a pass, or any number of rookie things that you can tend to do. And usually Florida State's good for an 8-9-7 year in the ACC in basketball. So it's rough to play in that conference day in and day out. Hey, it probably sounds like playing in the SEC in football, I would imagine.
Yeah, I think it's the equivalent. I think so.
So here's to our teams, and we may do a quick recap of that game too. Why not?
Yeah, why
not? All right. Well, thank you to the fans for listening. However you found us through the website, if you're downloading us on iTunes, we appreciate that. Give us a 5-star rating and give us some actual feedback. So take a minute, 90 seconds to just give us a sentence or two of how you like the show, how you found us, what you think, some ways we can improve. Always looking for the feedback.
Yep.
All right. So signing off, thank you so much for listening. This is Brandon. Go Noles.
Go Gators.